Hey YouTube, just wanted to do a quick tour of my garden. This is July, first week of July, and wanted to show you guys how my garden is doing, what are my plans in near future, and how's my experience been with my raised beds. I actually made a video last night. I might delete that one and replace that one with this because it just got too dark, and the garden is so beautiful. With the darkness, you don't see the real beautiful flowers and the colors and all the fun things. So I don't want to make the video and all the talking without the beautiful vegetables and other things. So let's get into it. Basically, I have created about 7 raised beds this spring, and I filled it up with horse and goat manure. It has a lot of shavings, so it has enough nitrogen and carbon portion. So, and also horse manure and goat manure is not very hot, not very heavy in nitrogen, because their main diet is grass. Now, if chicken manure is very hot in nitrogen, so if you are using chicken manure, it would be in very limited quantities. So I did not buy any dirt or anything. It's just pure manure, things like that. In some of the beds I did put some cardboard down, but in most of the beds I have not. And I think it does help if you put the cardboards down a little bit with the weed control, but nothing drastic. There's not like a great benefit or anything like that. I do really like that I put the weed cloth on all the exterior sides. I've not put weed cloth inside the raised beds because I want the roots to go in to the ground, and I don't want to restrict the root length. It will grow. Some of the plants, their roots can go up to 2 feet in length, and my beds are only 1 foot tall. So I don't want to restrict it. You'll not get the best results if you restrict your roots. So I also the weed cloth that I've used over here is very cheap, something that I bought from Home Depot. It's actually tearing up in so many different places. So I'm not very happy with what I have. So there's a lot of trial and error. You can see there's grass coming up over here where there's tears. Everywhere on the edge you can see it's a maintenance, even though it's supposed to be a non-maintenance. Now compare this with areas where I have no weed cloth, like over here, because I was going to do it and I never got around doing it. It's been a nightmare. The grass was, I've mowed it down right now, but the grass was as tall as this stuff that's growing in, and it was putting the seeds inside the beds, and the beds have no grass growing inside. So as you can see, there's so much weed. And one of the biggest things about gardening is weeding. And if you're doing it organically and not spraying weed down with stuff, then it's a lot of labor's work, and I work full time, so I want to do gardening with the least amount of work possible. So that is my goal. Everybody has different goals, and I've before these years, this is my first time with the raised beds, but before this I've only grown directly in the ground, and I noticed the huge difference by adding the raised beds. It is a game changer. The amount of food production the raised beds the plants that are in raised beds are able to produce is way more than I've ever been able to plant over here because of the weed. Look over here is an example. My tomatoes are competing with all this weed, and it's impossible for me to weed constantly this ground area. I tried the mulch area. It's called permaculture or something like that. I can't remember the exact term, but you know, you're trying to use the mulch. This is just wood chips right here. You can see it's all wood chips, but the grass grew on top of it, so it's not working for me. It may be working for some other people, but this is not working for me. So I have decided to actually get rid of this whole area and add 7 more beds just like that, and add the weed cloth. And this time I'm actually going to add a really heavy duty weed cloth. It's about, I think, 5 ounce. There's different ounces of thickness in the woven fabric that you can buy, and I was able to find on Amazon a woven fabric that was pretty high quality, and it had free shipping, and I think it was like 20% off or something like that. So I did buy it. Once it's delivered, I'll give you guys update on how good or bad that weed cloth is, but it's definitely going to be better than what I have currently over here. You can see that. Now this is a little bit different weed cloth. This is much heavier than that. This one is also from another project we did. It's a leftover, so I only had this, and this did not tear. So I know that if I replace that weed cloth with a nice thicker weed cloth, this in between walking area is going to be staying nice. And the other addition I am going to do is I'm going to add pavers instead of staples, because wherever I have staples, the grass is growing through those whole areas. So I want it permanent, so I'm going to add pavers so I can easily walk on them, and it keeps the ground and this weed cloth down. So right now over here you can see this is bumpy because the weeds is pushing the weed cloth higher up on the ground. You can see more easily over here. See how bumpy it is. Let me zoom out, because this is all actually there's grass under this weed cloth. I don't know if the camera is able to capture it or not, but that's what's happening. And if I put the pavers down, new weed cloth down, I should be able to manage all that. So that is the plan. Going forward, I am just going to add in very near future, maybe in a couple of months, I'm going to build 7 more beds, going to get rid of all of this stuff. The tomatoes have, like all these tomato plants that you see over here, I have only 2 tomato plants over there. They have produced more tomatoes than all of these combined. That's how big of a difference it made for me. And I've tried growing tomatoes for years and years and years, and I've never been successful. So basically growing it in the raised beds with all this manure, compost, whatever you want to call it, concentrated, and they don't have to fight with the grass, is basically made the big difference. See, the grass is taller than my tomato plant, so I just have to keep at it as much as I can. Also, I'm going to buy more weed cloth So for example, when I am not growing, I'm actually going to cover these beds up with the weed cloth on top, and I'm going to just add some pavers on the top. So that is going to be my non-seasonal covering on top of these beds. So I don't want the weed seeds going in and starting to grow. And if I decide that I want to take a break for one season, I don't want this whole raised bed area to turn into a grass growing area. So that is going to be my strategy on how I am going to keep these raised beds without weeds. So I will have weed cloth on the bottom in the walking area, and I will have additional weed cloth cut for those are going to be the 6 feet wide weed cloth, and this is 4 feet wide beds, and I'll put it on top of it with bricks or some weight to keep the beds covered when I'm not using them. So for example, if I put new freshly chicken manure or horse manure and it's too hot for the plants, I may cover it up with wheat cloth for a month or two and let it compost and break down before I start using that bed for my growing season. So that is the plan. Now, another thing I was wanted to discuss is basically gardening is not it's not easy. It's not like you can look at somebody's garden and it's growing so many cool things, and you try and do it and you don't get the same results, and that's because you don't have the experience. There are some vegetables and some plants that will grow great in your area. You may have like for example, blackberries grow great on my property. I just have ton of blackberries, but that doesn't mean my neighbors has ton of blackberries. She has been trying to grow and she cannot make them grow. So what may work for me may not work for you, but you just have to try it and see what works. So you try a variety and see if it works. If it doesn't work, try a different variety. Grow the foods that you are going to eat. So for example, we love okra. I love the okra curry, and I am growing, how beautiful this okra flower is. I'm growing lots of okras. Now my challenge with okra is that the okra have to be harvested pretty much every single day. If you don't harvest them every single day, they just at least every other day, they just get too big too fast, and then they're too fat, not tender enough for my curries, and that's how I don't like big jumbo okras. So like for example, this okra that you see here, it will be about this big tomorrow and about this big or fat the day after. So it will be too seedy and too stubby for my curries, and I won't be able to eat. So I have to try and come out more often to harvest, and that's not possible for me every other day or not. It's just not possible. I have other priorities. I have kids, I have job, I have other animals that always have more priority over my garden. So I do the best I can to grow the food, and sometimes I'm successful and sometimes I'm not, and that's okay. But it's still way more better than not growing at all. So for example, I have not purchased any peppers this year from a grocery store at all. I am growing so much peppers this year that I don't even know how to use them. I mean, they're just loaded. I'm giving away so many peppers, and then also there are just so many peppers. I can't keep up with them. I tried pickling them. And then also there are just so many peppers. So next year I am going to reduce the amount of pepper plants I plant because they are just producing so many peppers. Don't have enough time to pick them, and even when I do, I don't have enough time to use them all up. And this year I did something that I normally don't do, which was plant the peppers early in the season. I actually started my peppers for the first time in January, and I had pepper plants with flowers and peppers, producing peppers, since March. So I've been harvesting since March, and these peppers will continue producing for me throughout the year. And I think by October, November, that's when I'll get my first freeze and they'll die down. But that's a long time of getting free peppers from your plants. So if you time it right, like I have been always planting peppers too late, and by the time they start producing, they have to compete against weeds, and I was always growing it in the grass. That was another reason I did not have enough peppers. So it has never been successful until this year, and it took me 7 years to figure this out. So also, I did not want to spend money on buying material to build the raised beds, but this year slowly I'm adding more things, more investments. So I'm investing in the weed cloth. Right there, you see that big hole? That's because it's a cheap weed cloth. So once I buy the new fancy stuff, hopefully this will not happen, and hopefully it'll last me at least 5 years. So if it lasts me 5 years and I can produce enough food, that's a good thing. Same thing with eggplants. I started them in January. So from now going forward, eggplants and peppers are always going to be started for me in January. So I have enough peppers for the rest of the year. And these peppers that I planted are different varieties. I've not just planted bell peppers. I actually have banana peppers, serrano peppers, cayenne peppers, Indian peppers, a lot of Anaheim peppers. I'm using Anaheim peppers as a what is it called? Like instead of bell peppers, because they are not really spicy and they have a good flavor. This one got a little sunburn, but this is a bell pepper. This is a eggplant, such a beautiful one. So I think Black Beauty eggplant. I already made so much curry from my eggplants. My eggplants are doing amazing. Actually, I saw a huge one over here that got missed in picking and turned into a really big one. Yeah, that's just too big. That's huge. Has a little bit of nicks and necks, and that's okay, yeah, but eggplants and peppers, I've got too much of it. So I'm going to definitely reduce the amount of peppers I grow, because I can't consume them enough, and I don't have enough time to harvest. So I'm going to reduce all these peppers. Right now I have like 1, 2, 3, almost 3 beds full of peppers. So I'm going to reduce it down to maybe just 1 bed of pepper plants. And then have more tomatoes, because I use way more tomatoes than peppers. So I'm going to have one whole area of okra, 1 bed of tomatoes, and 1 bed of peppers. So the more you grow and more you experiment, you will learn more things what will be better for you next time. And those things you cannot read and look at somebody's and figure out whether it'll be good for you or not. You just have to grow and experiment and see what you eat more, what grows better. Maybe certain varieties of tomatoes may not work for you, or some vegetable will not work for you. So for example, I've grown so many different tomatoes, but this year I really got a good harvest on tomatoes. I came yesterday and I pulled out a lot of tomatoes. So what you're seeing over here is just maybe like 2% of the tomatoes this plant has produced. I have like bowls and bowls of tomatoes just from these two plants. So, but this one has eaten a little bit, but this is a sun gold, and I love this. It's so sweet and so yummy to eat. So super yum. Sun gold tomatoes. Highly recommend this tomato variety. The other tomato variety is a Indian tomato variety, and let me show you. They are very small but very tart, and they are super yum tomatoes. So really nice tomato plants, and are very productive also. So it does not need much anything, and I'm not like an expert or anything like that. I should have pruned it and done all these different things, and I have not done it. I'm just letting it grow however it's growing, and it's still producing. You know, you don't have to be an expert to grow vegetables. You learn as you grow, and the more you grow, the more you will figure out more things. How pretty these peppers are. So some of these chilies I will let them grow and turn into red chilies and dry, and then I will actually process them as a dry chili powder for adding in my curries. So it's not all bad, and at the end, if something doesn't get eaten, it always goes to my chickens and my animals, and they love it. I'm also growing ginger this year, and it's doing great. You can see how pretty it is right there, and it looks like a miniature bamboo. That's how it looks, but it's so beautiful and it's doing amazing. So this was an experiment. I had purchased a lot of ginger from Costco. It was organic ginger, and I was not able to finish it. The box was too old, got a little moldy, and I was like, you know what, I'm just going to throw it on my raised beds and see what happens. And this is what happened. It's growing ginger. So, you know, try different things. Same thing with my celery. I've been trying to grow celery for so many years, have never been successful in growing celery. But this year I tried to grow it from celery from the grocery store, and it's growing. Of course, it's too hot right now, but once the weather cools off in October, I'm hoping that this takes off and it produces a lot of celery. So yeah, lots of chili plants, and cilantro is doing amazing in winter. This is a very hot month. July is very hot in Texas, so it's not doing that great, but it'll come back up really nice in the cooler months. I absolutely did not buy any cilantro in the winter months because I had abundance of actually cilantro and lettuce. It did really good. Right now I'm not growing any lettuce. This is just some lettuces that are from my winter months, but lettuce right now in summer, if I grow it, they're very bitter, so I'm not growing any lettuce in summer, but I will start growing again in fall, and they will produce good until March. So this is seasonal, and these are the lettuce seeds. I'm just taking some seeds and sprinkling them so they'll grow some lettuce. So once I have the new beds, I have plans of growing cabbages. I did grow a really nice cabbage this year. It was I think it's called an early Jersey cabbage variety. and it was very nice. The second cabbage that I grew was same variety, but it got bug damage, so I lost one, but I did successfully grow one. Actually, it's still here, so you can see it's not all success. Right here you can see that early Jersey cabbage. It's not doing great, but I had one that was perfect, and I was able to harvest it. And I will grow more as I have more beds. So I'm going to have cabbage bed and a cauliflower bed and a broccoli bed. Those are the beds I am going to have. Also, very successful and super easy to grow was onions and potatoes. I added potatoes seeds from Tractor Supply, and I produced about 3 5-gallon buckets from 2 or 3 packets of potato seeds. So I'm still using them. They're in my house, and we're still using them. Same thing with onions. I purchased those small bundle of onions that you can buy from Tractor Supply or Home Depot in springtime. They are like onion starts, and they are about $3 or $4 for 50 onion starts, and you just put those onions, and I filled up this whole bed with onions, and they did amazing. So I am still using those organic onions that I grew from my garden. So overall, I've had a great successful year in gardening, and to be honest, every year is not successful. Sometimes you have too much bug damage, and sometimes you have too much weed. I've always been struggling with weed, and the answer to my weed is my weed cloth, and I need something permanently weed management, so I can have a garden with less physical work, more time in harvesting and actually growing instead of just pulling weeds. The other thing that I have tried, and it is kind of working, is growing too many things in one bed. So I do get smaller vegetables because of that, but I have less weeds. So for example, this whole bed I had potatoes, so too many potatoes growing. So the potatoes are not huge, they're like decent size. I mean, some I got very huge, but some of them were decent size, and some I got really small ones, and they're all okay for me. I'm okay with getting smaller size potatoes sometimes. Same thing with onions. I grew them too close, so the weeds did not grow along with them. But I actually like the small onions, because the small onions I can take a small onion, cut it, and put it on my sandwich and be done with that small onion. I don't have to refrigerate the leftover. So I actually like this small onion or small produce. Like over here I have grown too many okra plants. Yeah, they're producing small okras. They're a little bit stubbier, but at the same time they are blocking off the sunlight from the weeds to grow. So that's the idea, to grow too much so the weeds don't have the sunlight, and you have better vegetables. So all this area have tomatoes. This is San Marzano tomatoes. They are not doing great at all because they are competing with the weeds. And the same thing with my Queen of Malincano tomatillo. They did really good in springtime when we did not have much weed, but now they're almost at their end of growing, because they have to compete against the weeds. So nothing great going on with my San Marzanos, but I will definitely grow them again. They are really, really yummy to eat and to cook with. But I will also grow the regular tomatillos because I do miss the tartness These tomatillos are very sweet, so great for snacking as a vegetable. But for certain salsas, I like the sour tomatillo, so I am going to grow sour tomatillos. Now these tomato plants, as you can see, it's like a jungle, hard to harvest or anything. Most of them not growing much, so because they're competing against all the grass and the weeds, so this is all going to come out, and this is going to be another raised bed area. Hello, that's Elsa and that's Pistachio, our two little baby goats. She got a little boo-boo over here, so I've separated her out and he's giving her company. So that's what I wanted to show you guys. Hope I can inspire others to grow. I think everybody can grow vegetables. Just don't be disheartened. It is better than buying conventional food. You may not always enjoy gardening, especially when there are so much weeds growing, and when you grow something and it doesn't grow the way you expected it to grow. There are going to be good days and bad days in gardening, but that should not stop you from growing, because if you buy those conventional fruits and vegetables, they use all these pesticides and herbicides, and if you read the fine prints on those pesticides and herbicides, you will realize all the things that it can cause. It can cause cancer, it can cause issues with your liver, and they are just not a good thing. So they grow that because they have to grow for mass production. They don't want to grow, good things take more work. And if you grow it with all these pesticides and herbicides and artificial stuff, it will be easier for you to grow, but at the same time, I don't know if you're extending your life or decreasing your life. So do what you can. Highly recommend you guys growing organically, and it's not just about the food. It's also it's a great learning for kids to be involved. I think it's kind of meditative to be outside in your garden doing your own thing. You could be spending a lot of money on a meditation lesson, or some people go out and drink and party, and they will be spending a lot of money doing that. And I rather spend my money in growing food that I can enjoy looking at it, growing at it, and feeding my family. So here, let me quickly show you guys my successful pear tree, how beautiful it's doing. Now I also grew apple trees. One of them died. Apples don't do good in Texas, even though I tried it, and of course it shows that I have apple trees and pear tree. And this pear tree I grew last fall, and it's just covered in pears. I tried to help the pear tree by putting this post to keep the limb up, because everything is just drooping down because it's so heavily covered in the pears. So yeah, it's loaded with pears. And now let me show you the downside of growing something that does not grow in your area. Both of these trees were planted at the same time. This is my apple tree. I planted 3 apple trees because they need pollination, and one apple tree is dead, and this apple tree has 1 apple growing. So know, it's not all fairy tales. Not everything you're going to grow is going to be successful or grand success. You know, you'll have failures and you'll have somewhat growing, and then you have nothing growing on that apple tree, and then you will have these crazy producing trees. So you just try and enjoy your failures and successes and keep trying at it. So this is a plum tree. I was very excited about the plum tree because it had a lot of flowers and small plums, but they all just fell down. It did not did not produce any plums, not a single plum on this plum tree. So, and it's not even a new plum tree, it's actually an old plum tree, but nothing on this plum tree. So that's what's happening on the plum tree. This is a Fuyu persimmon tree. My goats got out, ate it to the ground, and it's regrowing. And here is a peach tree. It's loaded with peaches, which is great, but it's covered in pests. So I have to figure out how to keep these peaches pest free, because a lot of worms are there in most of the peaches, even though I have so many peaches. So like I said, gardening is not always fairy tales, but you can keep at it and learn and become an expert eventually, or try a different variety that might, you know, give you a bumper crop. So here is my blackberries. We are tired of eating blackberries because they produce so many blackberries. Now they're done producing because it's too hot. But we got bunch of blackberries. I have so many in the freezer. We made blackberry jelly, we made blackberry pie, we made blackberry juice. Tired of eating blackberries is what happened. It's still producing flowers and blackberries, so it's amazing how it's doing over here. And now my neighbor is trying to grow it and it's not doing that well. So, you know, some things grow and some things don't grow, and that's okay. You just try to grow what grows in your area. So hope this helps. Thank you guys for watching. Happy gardening. Share your links and your experiences with your garden. And this is another peach tree. It already finished producing. So having multiple varieties of peaches or fruit trees will give you fruits at different times of the year. That's another persimmon. And I also have a fig tree over here. So, and it actually died completely this when we got the winter storm. Our temperatures went down to 2°F, and it's coming back. I don't like the way it's growing all around on the bottom. I may have to come and prune it, but it smells sweet and really nice. So happy gardening, you guys. Thank you for watching. Have a blessed day.